This is the same tennis player, just 45 minutes apart. One swing is all arm, and the other, full body power. If your serve feels weak, awkward, or like you're muscling it all with your arm, this lesson is for you. Most players don't even realize that their arm is completely disconnected from the rest of their body. This simple drill I call the helicopter completely rewired how she moved. For the first time, her body led the swing and her arm finally followed from a lower, more powerful position. You're about to see how the right feel, the right cue, and the right drill can unlock a whole new level of serve power fast. Before we get right to the drills that will help you overcome this super common problem, I want you to see how the best players in the world use their bodies to swing their arm. Here's Roger Federer already in a trophy pose position, and you'll notice that his elbow is low, but it's not low because his arm has dropped. It's low because his entire torso has coiled and turned and tilted in this direction. In other words, if I draw a straight line across his chest and down to his dominant elbow, you'll see that it's in a straight line. So his arm and his elbow are low because his entire body has tilted and turned in this position, not because he's just dropped his elbow. And so when he continues from this position up towards contact, notice how his elbow and his arm are going to come upwards at the same rate as his chest is going to rotate upwards. So watch the text on his shirt and look at how his right arm and his elbow are elevating and coming upwards along with his torso. In other words, it's his torso that is leading the arm, and the arm and the hand obviously are connected to the racket, but I would really strongly encourage you to view this not as the arm swinging the racket, which is what so many tennis players do, but instead it's the body that's swinging the arm, and then the arm is connected to the racket. And so the body is actually swinging the racket, mostly up towards the point of contact. Now let's take a look at my student before we did any training or drills together. Initially, as she starts going up towards her trophy pose, it looks like she's gonna have the right idea, but keep your eye on her right elbow, how as she goes forward towards her trophy pose, it keeps elevating and it keeps raising, even though the line of her shoulders is actually totally level and straight. So we have this horizontal angle with her torso, which is what most of you out there watching this video are doing. Then we have her non-dominant elbow upwards, which is what Roger was doing, but her dominant arm is also upwards. I like to call this a classic YMCA position. She's putting both arms up in the air while her shoulders are level. And so what's happening here is her dominant arm is jumping out in the lead part of the parade. It's starting up towards the point of contact before her body even starts to turn up towards the ball. See how her elbow is starting from a very high position and it's also heading out in front of the body? So this means that it's a very arm-centric swing. Her arm is not connected with the big, powerful rotation, coiling and uncoiling of her torso. It's operating independent. And so that's why this swing, when you just watch it in full motion, looks very weak and doesn't look very powerful or very athletic. Another big reason why this way of swinging the racket, even though it's so common, is so weak, is look at where my student's elbow was starting in her trophy pose compared to where Roger's elbow is starting in his trophy pose. So when I go forward to the point of contact on my student, her arm and elbow is moving this far. She has this much of a runway to be able to accelerate the racket. And remember, it's mostly with her arm because her arm is leading the swing. When you look at Roger from this low position going up towards contact, look at how much more space his arm covers. This is a dramatically bigger runway to be able to build speed, build acceleration. And so this is another big reason why this high elbow position at the start of the trophy pose is just such a weak, armed kind of swing. And again, so many players use this technique. Let's get to the training now so you can see how to solve this really common problem. I like to call this the helicopter drill, and I've had really big success using this with players who tend to have their arms doing all kinds of different things separated from their body. So I'm just having my students start with their hands just underneath her chin, and this essentially locks the arms together with the torso. And so when the torso moves, both arms are locked in and do the same movement with the body. So I'm showing her how to first turn back and then tilt down. These two moves are what are designed to set the racket, the arm in the right position, and then also lock the arm to the body so that it's the body's power and force, which is so much stronger than your arm muscles, that pulls the racket around through a big, long, powerful motion. My student's doing a great job here. You can see initially, she's just kind of trying to figure out the coordination. And that's because she's used to just being straight up and down with her torso. She's used to trying to do all this movement with her arm independent of her torso. And now for the first time, she's learning how to coordinate her torso to swing her arm, which in turn is going to swing her body. When I first did my demonstration, I followed a certain sequence. I recommend you do this at home. I first turned back about 45 degrees, and then I tilted down about 45 degrees. And that sets the angle of my spine about like here. You could also look at the zipper on my hoodie. That basically tracks with my spine. And then the goal is to set that spine angle and then rotate around that angle up towards contact. This is the secret to utilizing the biggest, strongest parts of your body and being able to stay relaxed and keep your arm loose and fluid because it's no longer running the show and trying to generate all the acceleration on the serve. Okay, now we're practicing with the racket in her hand, going from just like a starting position for the serve and into her trophy pose so she can practice creating this same coil and this same connection with her body and her arm. So notice how initially, when she goes back into her first practice one, her elbow actually slumps down way too low. It's no longer connected with her shoulders. She is artificially just trying to be like, okay, Ian, I get it. I got to drop my arm, drop my elbow. But the whole point here is to connect with the body so the body can lead powerfully. So I'm coming in and adjusting the height of her arm and her elbow so it's in line with her shoulders. And then I kind of use my racket here as like a measuring stick. The whole point here is to connect the racket ultimately to the torso so that we're swinging and essentially like throwing the racket around with these big, strong, stable muscle groups. So your first task after doing the helicopters is to practice going from your hands together in front of you and just go up to a practice trophy pose and practice connecting your dominant arm with your torso straight and not allowing your arm to run the show and do its own thing. We don't want it to be too high above the line of the shoulders. We also don't want it to be too low below the line of the shoulders. If you'd like to learn how to apply all these same principles to your forehand ground stroke so your forehand can be more smooth and effortless and fluid and powerful, make sure to go to forehandpower.com and pick up the free training I have there that will show you step-by-step drills that you can do by yourself on your local court with just a basket of balls or just a pocket full of balls to step by step use your body in the right order, have your body go first and have your arm be smooth and fluid and relaxed. Ultimately, it's going to show you how to add 15 miles per hour of power to your forehand in just 15 minutes of practice. It's totally free, so go pick it up at forehandpower.com. Now in the third training drill, my student, after she got familiar with going to a correct trophy pose, connecting her arm with the line of her shoulders, now she's going through a full motion, a full shadow swing. You'll notice some pieces are kind of missing now. Like she had a pretty good racket drop before, but now that's kind of starting to get skipped a little bit. As her coach, I'm totally fine with that. It's taking all of her concentration, all of her mental energy to just connect the dots here and make sure that her arm and her elbow are going to the right position. And then more important, well, equally as important, now, as her body starts rotating and turning towards the point of contact, look at how now it is her body leading her arm around instead of her arm moving independent. So like watch the zipper, watch the rotation of her chest as she goes forwards, and watch how from this now lower position, her arm and her elbow are coming along for the ride with her body. This is the key biomechanically, frankly, on all of your tennis shots, but especially what's supposed to be a big, long, powerful motion like the serve to generate as much racket head speed as possible. It's got to be the body is leading the show, not the arm trying to do its own thing. It's so much weaker than all these big, strong muscles in your torso. Now you're about to see her first ever hits using this new motion, these new body positions. I'm having her kind of go back and forth between a couple shadows and a couple hits. And just right out of the gates, I'll show you a side-by-side here in just a second, but this is so much stronger, so much more athletic. Now it's her body that's actually leading the show. It's actually leading the way for the arm, and her arm is starting to follow behind. The number one piece of feedback that I'm giving her is her right elbow badly wants to float and lift upwards. Here's a good example. This serve that she just hit. On all her shadow swings, she's doing great. But when she tosses for a real hit for practicing, she starts off really nice and connected here between her shoulders and her dominant arm. But then well before her body actually starts to turn forwards, look at how her right elbow starts floating upwards. And now we have, again, she's in a better position than when we started, but look at how her right elbow is starting to lead and initiate and go first before the body is ready to turn. And that's going to turn this back into a weak, unstable feeling arm swing instead of, let me show you one of her better ones here. So here's another hit. On this one, her right elbow is actually dropping a little bit too far. It's a little bit disconnected from the line of her shoulders. But watch how now on this swing, watch the line of the zipper on her hoodie, and watch how that is leading the arm around. So she still has strong connection here between her arm and her torso, and now it's her torso that is starting to actually initiate and accelerate the arm. This contrast is honestly pretty wild. Just 45 minutes apart. On the left is her original serve. She's in her trophy pose on both sides here. One of these looks like a good tennis player. Look at how much more loaded and coiled this is. Look at how much more connected and strong this looks. Previously, we had the line of her shoulders, then we had her non-dominant arm, and we had her dominant arm, all in different angles. Now she's much more connected. And now it's her body leading her arm. And this creates, just like Roger, what we looked at before, this creates this big, long runway from the bottom all the way up to the point of contact. It's creating this big range of motion to be able to build acceleration and speed, whereas previously she was starting from this position and then going up to this position at contact. No, really interesting. Notice how much more lateral or straight this path is compared to the other one. Not only is this much stronger, more athletic, more connected across her entire body, but she's now generating much more force vertically, which, if you've studied tennis at all, you know is critically important on a serve, especially if you're not 6'5" and able to make contact and essentially, actually I think you have to be like 7'2" or something to actually literally hit the ball down into the box on the other side. This is super satisfying. Obviously, she doesn't look exactly the same as Roger Federer, but she's only been practicing this for like half an hour. And so look at how many physical pieces now are in place. Look at the slant of her shoulders and the connection with her arm. Also, look at the slant at the bottom of her shirt, which indicates the tilt of her hips. She's storing so much more energy now than she was before, and her serve can only help but be stronger and more powerful as she practices this and trains it. And if you want your forehand to be dramatically more powerful by connecting your arm with your body, just exactly like these same principles, make sure to go to forehandpower.com and get the free training that will show you step by step how to add 15 miles per hour to your forehand in just 15 minutes of practice. Thank you so much for watching today. Hope you go do the helicopter drill. It's been a game changer for so many of my students. Helps connect the arms to the body, get things moving in the right order. Thanks for watching. Hope this was super helpful, and I'll catch you in the next lesson.